This is Rebecca Kolodziejski for Module 4, Pharmacology, which is centered around mental illness, which, if you didn't note from my discussion question, is an issue that is very near and dear to my heart. So, this scenario instantly made me very sad because honestly, this is something that could have happened to my mom if she didn't have the support of a wonderful family. Um, this woman is clearly in some kind of psychotic state, uh, and possibly brought on by drugs or alcohol, because she is asking for a bottle. To that end, I find it upsetting that people automatically assume someone is an addict when they're in a situation such as this, because as I mentioned before with my mom, she rarely drinks. I've never seen her drunk in my entire life. And I'd be shocked to find out if she did anything more than smoke pot when she was a younger girl. And to that end, there's no shame in being an addict, but I also think it's important not to assume right away that somebody is suffering from an addiction problem when they're in a state like this. So to put that in perspective, when my mom went to the emergency room with a breakdown a few years ago, I'm sure most people in this emergency room assumed that she was going through they had to think drugs, because she was screaming, she was talking to entities that weren't there, she was combative. And I'm ashamed to say, but I think it's important to be honest, that if I wasn't somebody that had grown up in around mental illness and had seen what I have seen, it's very possible that I would have thought, okay, this lady is on drugs. I wouldn't even have thought for a second that maybe that she's, having some kind of mental episode. And again, there's no shame in either one, but it's also important to know what's going on as a physician. You want to know what you're treating. If somebody is suffering with withdrawal symptoms, those obviously need to be treated. Alcohol withdrawals can be fatal. And to that end, if you assume somebody is suffering from a withdrawal symptom when they're really just in the middle of an episode of mental illness, they could also be treated inappropriately. This person that's found is also suffering physically, so her physical ailments will need to be taken care of quickly. Why is she bleeding? And as far as, what has happened to her, a big scenario that comes to my mind is, first, like I said, she could be an addict. Maybe she's withdrawing, but she's referring to a bottle. So to me, this could also quite possibly be an instance of somebody suffering from mental illness who has abruptly decided to stop their medication. That is what caused my mother's breakdown previously, is she decided in a manic episode that she did not need her medication anymore. And she did not tell anybody she wasn't going to take her medication anymore. We kind of found it all in trash cans later. And this set off an episode. So that's why, and the fact that this woman fell withdrawing from those medications could make her dizzy. And the fact that she's saying she needs a bottle, she could be referring to a bottle of medication. Obviously, your first place your mind goes to when you hear somebody say a bottle is an alcohol bottle, and it could possibly be, but just to think of all possible scenarios. And to really put that in perspective, when my mom stopped her medication abruptly and had her episode, she actually fell trying to get a cross off the wall. We're Catholic. She had a crucifix on her wall, and she wanted to take it down because she was in a state of psychosis, and one of the entities that she was speaking to told her to take this cross down, and she fractured her ankle. And another thing, just to stress the importance of people who are on medications for their mental health. A big thing, just a quick anecdote I'd like to point out is not only that you can have these shaking hand type withdrawals, these dizzy spells. My mom actually had her first and only seizure because she was on Wellbutrin and Klonopin at the same time, because she was in the middle of an episode. It was after her father had died. Sorry, I have a piece of hair that won't stay put. And she stopped taking her Klonopin quite abruptly while on Wellbutrin, and she had a seizure. She never had one before, and she's never had one since. In reference to the research question, so finding a good therapist is no easy task. My sister and I have talked about this all the time. And, my mom sees a therapist and a psychiatrist, because psychiatrists are the ones that can prescribe the medication. Of course, you know that. And We have had issues in the past with, the psychiatrist is really her call. I'm sorry, the therapist is really her call because you have to have somebody you're comfortable speaking to. And the psychiatrist has kind of always been a family effort because when we think she's starting with an episode, we'll reach out to her psychiatrist. And we've gotten a little frustrated in the past when we don't get the response we want. We've reached out to the psychiatrist before and said, we think she's starting with some kind of episode. She was like sobbing uncontrollably and couldn't explain it. And sometimes we'll get like an answer like, and I guess to the psychiatrist's point, sometimes people cry. What's an episode and what's just having some feelings? But a lot of times you don't always get the feedback you want. So it's important to have that really close relationship where you feel like you can talk to them and be honest with them. And they need to be able to tell you sometimes too, to relax and let's see it play out. But when something seems of urgency to us, we like to have somebody who's responsive about it. And as far as insurance goes, so many insurance companies hire spokespeople to push this whole take care of your mental health agenda, which is great. I'm a member of the National Alliance for Mental Illness. I believe in it so much, but so many insurance companies, including the one I work for, push this agenda, and then it's crazy expensive to see a therapist. The copays are high, and if you're having to see a therapist once a week or more, it can get costly pretty fast. So anyway, if you didn't notice, I really enjoyed this chapter. I always enjoy learning more about mental illness, as it gives me a little more insight into what I've dealt with, my whole life and what I continue to see in my mom. And just for others, I think it's important that we all be very sensitive and aware of what everyone's going through mentally. I think everybody struggles in some way, shape, or form, some of us more than others. But anyway, this was a great chapter, and thank you.